Right, hello everyone, and welcome to this special episode of the Culture Ultras podcast. I'm James Allen, joined as ever by Theon the Taser, and
This is the pronunciation test, James. I ran you through it. Come on.
Well, I'm going to get it right now because he's taken a sip of his coffee, he's had a think, and it's a pleasure to welcome to the podcast this week, Luca Lagvilava.
Perfect, mate. Perfect, bro.
Thank you very much. Top corner.
Easier than
Mr. Georgian Footy, of course. I have it edited. I did think of as we're in Georgia special, James Allen Ashvili. I've edited my own name to put a K before. There we go.
Yeah. How do you guys know each other?
Well, I just absolute pervert for Georgian football, and found Luca via the internet. So that's how it is. 2018. Never forget Dinamo Tbilisi versus FC Rostov. Just for my own ego, Luca, if you don't mind. Would you say I'm the person who as the first foreign man, I would say, to discover Kavicha Kvaratskhelia? Inside his first 10 games as a professional, just can we have confirmation on that?
As a foreigner, I'd say so. Yeah, you've got the keys for that one, definitely.
Come on. Have that, people on Twitter.
You're gonna send you a medal for that, yeah, man. We've interacted via Twitter, obviously, because it's a space for rather small nations who play football, apparently, apart from the Prem, La Liga, and the Bundesliga. And I've been fortunate enough to just have a decent followership and introduce the Georgian football around the Twitter world, and Fionn in particular this case. So yeah.
There's because Georgia of the 52 countries I've been to, advert for the budget board aim Vulture Authority YouTube channel coming to. Georgia's definitely the best. Definitely the best as a country, definitely by far. Serbia's second, but Georgia far. But there's something about Orthodox Christianity makes a country good.
Did you like Cyprus then and Greece? And
yeah. Well, Cyprus is too full of places like Iron Apple, ruined by English people on holiday, basically. I thought, obviously, for a first question, we would be remiss, of course, if we didn't speak about, the most famous man of all Georgian football, and the man who's it sort of opened the world a bit to Georgian football, Mr. Khvicha himself. So I was gonna ask you, like, what you think his impact will be long term on that, because we're long term in sort of Georgians coming through into because I've already seen like Sazonov go to Italy and stuff like that.
I guess it's a bit inspiring to loads of people, especially the youngsters who'd probably never dreamed of seeing a guy from Georgia playing for a team as good and being deemed as the next like superstar around the world, and especially last season and the way he introduced himself to Italy and then to Champions League football. It's definitely something to be aware of and proud of as a Georgian. And I guess for people, like, after that, basically every single under 12-year-old has got a Kvara kit in Georgia. So for Messi, Ronaldo, and I don't know, Hazard coming down to every single kid's wearing like a Kvaratskhelia shirt, that definitely means a lot. And yeah, it should be a big thing for our football, as I said before, like, to inspire kids to just stick with it, to carry on working hard, and maybe inevitably they'll reach that peak, which at this point Kvaratskhelia has got conquered. And I guess so. That's a huge thing. And obviously, the player he is, the quality he possesses, and the talent he's got, he could be, and he is the man who will probably carry us to a major tournament, and hopefully that'll come soon. Maybe next March, because we've got the Nations League playoffs to play.
No.
Yeah, and those game in the semi-final and then the final. Fingers crossed, the final. That'd be something really huge. And if there's someone who should deliver for us, it's featuring.
No, because I said to you, Luca, the other day, I think I just have a feeling, 20 years on from Greece 04, somebody somebody will repeat it. But I think there's obviously with them at the minute there's like you could class it as a golden generation, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's loads of
You'd say that in recent years, well, we had teams on paper at least that were miles better than this one. Typically, particularly in the 90s. Obviously, I was not even born at the time, so I can't really remember. But on paper, those teams were much, much better. But
doesn't stop English people going on about 66, you see.
What?
So it doesn't. The amount of never stops. Not being born doesn't stop English people going on about 1966.
Yeah, that's true.
This group somehow came together, and I mean the unity they possess and like the chemistry they've got is probably unmatched in recent history, and with players, especially this summer, because we had like quite a few players moving to decent leagues around Europe, and hopefully that will be something to build up on, and maybe 2 or 3 years time will be a team of the similar quality like Norway, who we struggled against on Tuesday, because they've got players, they're all stacked, they've got players in the top 5 leagues. I'm not only saying about this about like Haaland and Odegaard, obviously top quality players, but apart from them, it's a strong side you'd fancy to qualify for a major tournament. Maybe in a few years' time will be there in terms of quality and potential. So man.
If it wasn't for Scott McTominay scoring hat-tricks for some reason. Because I was going to, there's a lot because there's Mikatadze, who's just gone to Ajax, to join Chuba Akpom, to break my heart. Sazonov, I think, as I've said multiple times on Twitter, for receipts, as like 2018 proved. I knew I was right to say I was there when future generations asked, because so Sazonov, I think Sazonov is like Saba Sazanov's going to be one of the defenders of his generation. He's just class. I like him. Mamadashvili in net as well. I just the only like what I don't understand, like because you were saying that earlier today on at Georgian Footy on Twitter, recommended account, of course, because Sanyol seems to be playing Kverkvelia instead of I don't know if I pronounced that right. He was in my he was one of several Georgians in my lockdown football manager save. But yeah, he was a 6'5" cart horse for me. So I don't understand. I don't like you were saying. You said I think you said where you prefer to keep him, which is obviously makes sense. But how do you think the mood is in the rest of? Because
I'm not convinced that despite whoever we're going to sign, if Sanyol resigns, that much will change, because there's only 4 games to play before the playoffs. So 3 qualifiers and 1 friendly against Thailand in October, is it? Yeah. So physically, I don't believe that there's anything that could change to just massively and drastically improve the team to play, because that's such a short period of time. Obviously, never know that's for sure, because football, like maybe a coach comes in and just sprinkles a bit of brilliance and then the team starts clicking. But I guess he should probably stay, mainly because he just knows the group, and although he's been underutilizing a few players, Sazonov in particular, as I mentioned, he's probably the guy who somehow managed to bring this team together, and sacking him now is not quite the sensible idea, I guess. And I'm convinced is not even going to go, because A, the federation hasn't really got the guts to do it, and B, again, who's going to come in? That's the question. Yeah, some people are like, Zidane. Like, no, it's not going to come. It's not going to come to Georgia, definitely. Ideally, searching for a coach in like mid-season with just 4 games to play this year and having like crucial Nations League games, it's not a sensible move, if you ask me. So yeah.
It definitely feels like an attractive position, I think.
To some, yeah, I'd agree.
Because you've got the thing of I managed Kavicha, thing,
Yeah. Theon, do you want to put a CV in, or? Yeah,
well, hey, the Tasers, but I'll tell you what, we'll run through the Georgians I had in my team for my own listed stocking. We had everyone. We had George Kvilla, we had him. Kavici, Kvaratskhelia there. That's the thing as well. Right? People are saying, if he goes to City, right? Pep Guardiola will have signed 2 out of 3 of my front 3. So, Julian Alvarez being the other. Come on. Had Nika Ninua, who's was like a hot prospect at one time, but sort of dropped off the face of the earth. And then Kverkvellinger at the back, who was reserved because he was not very good. But I always, when I was 1-0 down, did I always throw him on just because he was 6'5".
Yeah, tall, strong, fast.
Shock him up.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere you'd like to see, like in the future, Kavici go to? Because Fionn is adamant that he wants him to go anywhere other than Newcastle United.
Anywhere, literally anywhere.
I've tweeted about this not once, and I do believe if there's a team that suits his play style, it's Barcelona. And even today, with them not being as good as they were maybe 5 years ago with Messi, Neymar, and Suarez, the game style they play, I guess that just you could build that around Vulture, and he'll be that 15-goal, 15-assist guy, as it was at Napoli, but with more ball-dominant team who likes to play on the counter in I'd say a more like open and more open league than the Serie A, because we all know how tactically and defensively, how well prepared the teams are in Serie A compared to La Liga at least. But despite that, I mean, if we just stated that he's a Real Madrid kid, sure how that can happen, but yeah, I guess Barcelona is probably one of the teams which I think which will be that real superstar, which I hopefully he'll be one day, but I guess Barca is that team. Yeah, some say like City, even like United. I've seen like United today. That's not going to happen.
No, that's definitely not.
I'm also like Arsenal, but Barca's probably my best bet for him to just excel as much as he can.
I think so, because he's I thought the player he reminds me the most of is Ronaldinho, like sort of just totally like not.
Yeah.
Like he goes back to like a time before. That's why I think I fell in love with him. I watched him when he was like 17, when he was for Russ Derby, just because he's like the way of playing. Every team that, like, you see what sort of City have done to Jack Grealish. How interesting he used to be to watch now, just because he's playing in this like fucking system football. How much the fun is taken out of life. Yeah. So I think but that is weird how he ends up supporting Real Madrid. But I suppose you've got everyone's got a foreign team, haven't they?
Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah, I've got it says me with an Apple L and a Napoli kit on the wall. But what was I going to ask you? Oh yeah, that was what you've reminded me, Luke, as we had this discussion the other day when I tried to bribe you into being a Middlesbrough fan, because nobody does it of their own free will. So I'd like you just to explain how you came to support the English team that you support, and tell us who it is, obviously.
Well, it's not really. I don't really support it.
Oh, right.
I've got a mate Sam who lives in Georgia. He's got a Georgian wife and a kid. We also met each other via Twitter. He wanted to like collaborate last year. The year before, and on my birthday he gifted me a Derby shirt. Oh. So it was like, why not? It's like a memorabilia. So and since that, like he obviously they went to a bit of a rougher patch, if that makes sense. They went to administration, then they got relegated, and now they're failed to get back to the Championship. So just because of his misery, I'd probably stick with Derby County.
Yeah, it's So that was my exact move with a friend of the show, Matthias, an Argentinian lad I met in Poland. He said, "Do you have an English team?" I said, "No, I'm buying you a kit." You do now. So I'll let James ask a few questions, as obviously I've been monopolising.
No. I'm your account is like, has this been something that's been like a plan or system in place to have this like golden generation? Has it been in the making? Because what I'm really interested in is, since obviously Georgia became independent, what was like the landscape of Georgian football like in the 90s? Like, I remember seeing a tweet you put about like clubs having to play in like different kits
Yeah,
to other clubs and stuff like that. So what were like key steps made from that point to like now, essentially?
Well, I guess you have to consider the history back then with Soviet Union, and after it fell, we had the first official national team game that was played in 1990 on the 27th of May against Lithuania. But obviously times were tough. That was the first time when Russia started their first invasion of Georgia back in 1991 as they occupied the region of Abkhazia. So war, corruption, a lot of, I guess like 1/3 of the country left, and they immigrated elsewhere. So yeah, economically speaking, and in other social areas, the country was relatively poor. And one of the reasons why, as I mentioned before, like teams wearing like a kit from Derby or Sheffield Wednesday or Brazil, Real Madrid, so on and so forth. That was probably one of the main reasons, because they got the war, whatever they got given on a day.
Wow.
Yeah, there was not. Yeah, but I guess after that, since like year 2003, 2004, and then the government changed, then so some positive movement has started, obviously, which allowed teams to somehow rebuild and became more stable, if that makes sense, because we had teams who were established like in 2002, and then they got folded in 2007, 2008, 2009. So that was a typical trend back in the day. And yeah, after that, I guess just because the situation got a little bit more consistent, slightly more consistent, more stable, and teams and obviously people were allowed to do a thing or two, and especially the country got more stable, if that makes sense, economically. And yeah, I guess that started that was the fundament of what we have now, if that makes sense, because as I mentioned earlier, in the 1990s, we had teams, we had players like 6 players in the Prem, like 7 or 8 players in the Bundesliga. So on paper, that team was way superior compared to what we have now, but there was no system, we had no lights, no gas, no water at times. So yeah, that was definitely an issue. And the mentality was also different, way different, because whoever made it outside Georgia, they were like, I'm not coming back. That doesn't only mean like footballers, I mean like people living in here who had the opportunity to leave the country to pursue better opportunities. And one of the fun stories is obviously we had a game against Norway on Tuesday, and we had the first time we faced Norway, that was in 1997, I think. And the national team was also with 2 other Georgian journalists, yeah. And one of them actually stayed in the country. He was like, I'm not coming back, just because it's like, he just stayed there. So if you're watching this, hi. And yeah, those were the times. And nowadays, as the older generation, I guess, mainly because we were allowed to put up a few academies, Dinamo Tbilisi Academy in particular, who got the biggest player pool. And although they monopolized the local market, and if there's a semi-decent local Georgian footballer under the age of like 7 up until 20, 80% of them play for Dinamo Academy, which A is good, but B is bad in certain scenarios, because that kind of gives you the impression that they don't really know what it is to be competitive in the youth league. So
yeah,
them winning like every single game, like 7-0, 6-1, 5-0, then will come down to a time when they play a team against from like, I don't know, Azerbaijan or Kazakhstan or whatever country you can call it. And just because they've never faced that difficulty to be against a superior team, those mentality drops and those kind of like mood swings always happen. And yeah, it's good and bad, and it means at the same time. So that's probably one of the reasons. And yeah, if you have a look at the team, 60 or 65% of the players are from Dinamo Academy, and all similar age, like from 2003 and above. And yeah, that goes to show how relatively well the academy worked. And well, Kvaratskhelia, one of the guys who is from that academy, and they're like 5 or 6 starters in the Georgian national team who also were part of the Dinamo Academy. So yeah, that's it's been a relatively long speech, but
No, no,
Oh, that's great, mate. No.
it's fantastic. It's great to see. Yeah.
That's how it went, and maybe in a few years' time, if the economics do well, other teams will be able to put up as strong of an academy as Dynamo's got, and players and youngsters from the west side of Georgia will be able to get a bit of training, sleep well in decent facilities, get decent equipment, and hopefully some of the lost talent we've got in the country, which is a thing in every single country, obviously. But in here, obviously, got less opportunities to make as a footballer, make it as a footballer. So maybe and hopefully, fingers crossed, that will be a problem solved in the next few years.
It's great to see that level of investment on an international level that I think maybe, as someone who I adore international football, it's good. Like I was reading about the Faroe Islands who've just invested in indoor domes over the past 20 years. The Icelandic team of 2016 were dubbed the Dome Kids because they were pretty much trained indoors and then obviously huge thing of going to Euro 2016 and the World Cup. Would you say is how can I phrase this? Is rugby still? Does it run parallel, or does it shift?
I do believe that comparing rugby, basketball, and football is not objective in a way because the competitive leagues are far less in both rugby and basketball because we've got by the rankings we've got the 11th or 10th best rugby team in the whole world, but if you think about it, they're around 100 teams playing, 100 national teams playing, and top apart from top 20, the other ones are relatively weak. And that's not the most objective comparison, if you ask me. But
right, okay,
the investment is there as well because just with in general, as I said before, that the switcher mentality, the 1990s and early 2000s were a bit different because people were fighting for their better future, if that makes sense. Street fights and guns and stuff like that. And nowadays people start to realize that sports as well as education and other things could be the route for them to make it as a equipped citizen, to earn a decent money, to be healthy, to provide for your family. And that's probably one of the reasons why sports had this big jump in the past 10, 15 years. And rugby's also has started to figure out how to work a system. Loads of youth teams, loads of youth clubs and international teams are doing well. And that's I guess rugby is one of the things which also does well, but again the levels aren't quite the same if you think about those two.
Yeah. Obviously Kaka Kaladze is the mayor of Tbilisi, which to non-Georgians and football purists is a fantastic thing. Has he got a direct involvement with Georgian FA? How involved is he within the?
Oh, that's that's a.
Have I touched a nerve there? I do apologize.
No, that's quite a topic. Yeah, that's quite a political topic because corruption is still a huge thing here, and it's all linked, every single aspect and every single federation, association. They're all connected to each other, and even the football federation, every single employee is either a former player or a brother to a former player or something like that. So the connections are there. Definitely the connections are there. And friends help out friends kind of business, which is not the greatest way to operate, but I'd say that's I'm not hugely proud of saying that, but that's a sad thing about our being in Georgia, the corruption, as I said before. And he's definitely involved, but just behind the curtains more than just straight away. So
I was gonna ask you, Luca, because we've talked as you often go on a very angry rant about the badly run clubs on Twitter. It's well worth following Georgian footy for that alone. It's happened once every couple of days at least. I was going to ask you about, because obviously sorry, say again, mate.
No, go on, Kieran.
Oh, that's right. About because obviously, like you said, I saw you put the thing up about Dinamo Batumi, who won the league last year and got an attendance of about 12 people. When I went to the to Dinamo Tbilisi, I think it was because it was on telly, but there was still about 15 people there. Just like that, because I know it's something that annoys you very much, the running of clubs. So I was just I'll let you take us away.
Yeah, the clubs, I guess like 95% of the clubs in every single tier are poorly run, mainly because how to put this, the owners don't know a sense about football, like a little bit. Obviously, football's business nowadays. It doesn't matter what side we're talking. Like if it's a top tier Premier League team or a team from the second division of Moldova, everyone wants to make money, and I guess that's fine. But they could easily make way more money if you actually apply a bit more sense to it, and if you try to acknowledge the issues you've got and the weaknesses you've got, which teams in Georgia aren't doing well. With one of the cases is dealing with Tbilisi, who've obviously it's a team I support because I live in Tbilisi and I've been a supporter since I was like 6, 7. Is that inside this past 5 years, they've made 12 million euros out of transfers, which is a huge amount for a country this small. But they are yet to make the Champions League, Europa League, or the Conference League group stages, which, if you think about it, if you've got obviously those 12 million aren't coming all together at once, but that's enough money for you to set up a decent team who will either make their way from the Champions League champions path all the way down to Europa League and then to the Conference League group stages. But they haven't got the knowledge, they haven't got the discipline to do it. Because at first in 2011, when this whole academy thing and this whole rebranding started, and the new chairman came in, a lot of money was invested and a lot of salary was given to players who never should have got the salary they got. And that resulted in just millions of dollars, euros, laris being spent on absolute nothing. And nowadays the owner says, like, I haven't got money at all, so leave me alone. I can't build you the same team I had before, because we had like players from one of the first team the now chairman got was like 4 players from La Liga. He signed them for free, obviously, but the players were like top quality players. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chisco. He used to manage Watford a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah.
Now Sheffield Wednesday, I think Sheffield Wednesday. He used to be a footballer dealing with Tbilisi, probably one of the, if not the best foreigners the team ever had. And yeah, he was given like an absurd amount of money, but he used to deliver. But the other players weren't. So a few years were wasted, and around 21 managers were released inside this past decade, which is also a huge amount.
That is very Watford numbers as well.
Yeah.
And it basically goes to show how poorly the club is managed, because by managed I mean like run. I guess that's what one of the main concerns and one of the main weaknesses are about Georgian football clubs, because with the amount of talent that is in Georgia, providing that supporting cast to the youngsters for a reasonable amount of money should be a thing, but teams fail to do it. And we've seen teams like, with all due respect, like Faroe Islands making it to the group stages, teams from Armenia making the group stages, Kazakhstan is a common thing now, Sheriff Tiraspol from Moldova, teams from the Baltic regions as well. So fair play to all of them, obviously, but watching them do it kind of leaves a bit, like heavy-hearted, because why couldn't we be there? I guess why? Because you don't put any effort in building a team and providing what should build a decent team around the players you've got locally, the youngsters, and then make it to the group stage, which again in return gives you a lot of money. It's like 4.5 million euros for making a group stage, which is a huge amount, at least for clubs of our region and similar quality and similar leagues. So yeah.
Yeah, do you think that affects the sort of path to professionalism then, with the obviously we've got Dinamo monopolising all the youth, and then obviously the clubs when you get further up are all dodgy, if not dodgy, but you know what I mean.
Obviously. I'd say so. because they're not even using the young players though. That's the issue. Feature only played like 4 games for the first team, 4 games for like back end of the season back in 2017. So it goes to show how careless they are about players, and all they think of is just, oh, let's sell high, and as long as we get some money in return, let's just have a whack at it and just sell players for an amount which could be doubled if they make the group stages. But I mean, that's the route the club has chosen, unfortunately. But it could be better after this season because, well, obviously I'm kind of close with a guy who works inside the club. He's a scout. He's a newly appointed scout at the club, and some positive movements have been shown for the past few weeks after sacking the former manager, and hopefully that'll turn out well. And I'm not convinced if they're going to win retain the league back this season, but if it's all for the team to rebuild and restructure and make the team better come next season, then I'll be happy for it.
I was going to wear my Dynamo Tbilisi shirt, but I thought I didn't want to alienate our Georgian listeners, so I've just put this one on. Yeah, but there you go. I do have one, so there you go.
Yeah,
the Barry-Tash-Vili tattoo there. Come on, give me a passport.
I think.
Do you do the Khinkali with a knife and a fork?
Say that again, mate.
You've probably eaten a Khinkali, right?
Oh yeah, of course I have.
With a knife and a fork or by bare hands?
I'm ashamed to say by well, for the video for Vulture Tbilisi, I will eat it with my hand. I'll just whack there.
Okay.
James, go on. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, it's fine. I just think it's as much as FIFA and UEFA, FIFA more so obviously come under flack for whole idea of Super League and creating that gap. I think especially for countries like Georgia and other European nations, even world nations, that things like the Nations League, even the Conference League, for example. I mean, from a purist perspective, I think it's great if there's more football, but I think it gives that team a platform to develop and grow. Have things like for example, the Nations League, I assume, has been massive for you because you're getting a Euro playoff spot out of it, aren't you?
Yeah.
And who will you face in?
Yeah, carry on.
Oh, sorry. Who will you face in that? Sorry, if you.
As things stand, we'll be facing Luxembourg in the semi-finals, and if we make it through to the final, we'll either take on Greece or Kazakhstan if Kazakhstan manages not to qualify directly from their group. So, I mean, we had an easier route back in 2020. We faced North Macedonia at home. This was like the lockdown season, but we had no feature who got COVID the day before the game. He was tested positive for COVID on training, and one other guy as well. And we weren't even allowed to enter the stadium, although UEFA gave us the green light to it. 1/3 of the attendance was allowed, but the government said no. And then 20,000 people stood outside watching football, which was also even more dangerous than being in the stadium. But yeah, that was probably one of the darkest days in Georgia football. I remember when Macedonia won it 1-0. Obviously, Goran Pandev, the Macedonian god, scored for them. And I remember whenever we conceded, I was like, "Hey, game over. We have got that in us to pull 2 back and make it to the Euros." But yeah, nowadays we've still got another chance with the Nations League playoffs, and hopefully this time we'll capitalize on it. We're going to be hosting the semi-final because we've had the best record in the C division. Wow. And maybe if the draw favours us, we'll also host the final, but we'll see that.
Do you play your national team home games at Tbilisi's ground?
Most of the times, 90% of the times, yeah.
And I imagine that'll be as packed out as can be. For
something like that. Even against Gibraltar last summer, we had the tickets sold out in 5 hours.
Wow.
So, I guess if and when the time comes for the semi-finals of the Nations League, it will be packed with not even a single seat being free. So
Oh, awesome. Well, fingers crossed. Def to Luxembourg.
Play some tax, you rat.
Yeah.
This recent few games as they've beaten Iceland, didn't they? Although they lost to Portugal quite emphatically, like 8 or 9-0.
Yeah,
Yeah,
9-0.
Still, they did all right in the qualifiers. Are doing all right in the qualifiers. So yeah.
There was obviously Georgia hosted the under-21 Euros recently.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you think there'd be a possibility maybe in the future of a bigger tournament, maybe the Euros, maybe, I don't know, like a obviously World Cup.
All depends on the facilities, isn't it?
There's not going to be a joint bid, maybe, but obviously not with. I can't have Armenia and Azerbaijan, so
no.
maybe was the one with Turkey supposed to be?
Could be, definitely. Yeah. Because obviously Turkey's got like few brand new stadiums, and for us to also take part in it, we need, I think, one more tier 5, if that's the correct way of wording it, stadium, which we haven't got. We only got the Tbilisi one and the one in Batumi. So I think you need either 3 or 4 to be able to host a major tournament. And maybe 8, I think.
Should play at the Castle Ground that goes viral every week, every 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about how many. Do you ever go to how many away games or grounds you've been to in around Georgia and stuff?
I can't really count it. Give me a second then. I've got this as a list.
Yes, a list.
Transfer market profile.
I can't. What's the name of the Castle Ground team again? That used to be tweeted.
I just call it the Fortress.
No, the name of the club that used to play there because they don't play.
Durucu Quareli. Durucu, basically.
Glad I didn't attempt that.
They haven't got a team, to be fair. They only got like a youth team now, but. Well, I've been to out the grounds that could be listed in transfer market. I've been to 11, but apart from that, obviously some small little stadiums around the country, which aren't listed on transfer market. I've been to probably around like 25, 30, something like that. Yeah.
I remember driving past De La Goris when I was in Georgia, but it's within view of Stalin's birthplace.
Yeah,
which I thought was quite funny.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you as well, Luke, what if you think, because of Sazonov going from sort of switching. Sorry, say again.
No, go on.
No, sorry. I thought I'd said something stupid. Then maybe I did. Anyway, I was going to ask you about Sazonov being, because he's the. I've seen it a lot with sort of any players who've got any sort of heritage apart from Russian move, sort of en masse exodusing. That's the word. Do you think that'll be of benefit in future? Maybe more because there's been players in the past who've obviously, I think, is it I don't know, Ananidze maybe had. Was he Russian?
No, he used to play for Spartak Moscow when he was since he was 15. But he was also asked to represent Russia, but he decided to obviously choose his motherland. But yeah, with Sazonov, one thing for sure, like he'll probably be a starter for us every single time we play if the coach decides to start him. Finally, because he's got the quality, he's got the physical presence, and he's absolutely. Mate, I've seen him in person, bro. He's massive. Like it's not about just he's just like wide and big. I don't know how to put this. We've had this. I actually used to work on this one last night. We have from the players I was able to search around 56 players under the age of 20 who could represent Georgia and who are playing in Russia right now. And by that I mean like under 16 and 17s and 18 and 19s. Because as I said, with a huge number of Georgians living in the country in the 19s, there are around 600,000 people living in Russia alone. So the diaspora is kind of huge, and it's not surprised that many of their children have made it as footballers. And I guess that will be a huge thing. That will definitely be something to consider if and when those guys decide to switch and move to the place which will obviously benefit their career, because obviously Russia can't really be playing any tournament fairly. And I guess that'll obviously be a positive switch if and when that happens. And we had players who rejected us as well. The Russian captain, well, I'm not sure if he's still a captain, but he was. That's also a sad story because he was actually attending a couple of training camps with us, and he asked the federation to get him a team to somewhere for him to play outside Russia. Because if he switched to Georgia, he will have his Russian passport vetoed, basically, and he was counted as a foreigner, so he was not allowed to stay in Russia in the club he used to play for. And the guys at the federation said, "We can't do it. We can't find you a club, and go screw yourself." And that guy continued to play for Russia, became team captain, played in the World Cup, and was one of the highest paid players in the Russian national team. So in this case, you have to think that all parties should work well together, and if and when everyone decides to be on the same track, it will obviously benefit every single side. And the federation has got to be more cautious about the players who are not only in Russia, obviously, the diaspora representatives, because like Mikhail Tadze, one of the guys who born in France, born in Lyon, played and been in France for the whole of his life, and fortunately enough for us, he managed to make it to the Georgian national team. And whether there are other guys like Sazonov, as I mentioned, and other players in the under-19 and the 17 teams who aren't born in Georgia but decide to represent us. One of the guys who plays in England is a not quite Georgian looking because he's got a Cabo Verdean mother and a Georgian father. So he's a bit mixed race there. He plays for Bournemouth. He's called Georgi Gonsalves.
Chubanidze. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful matchup.
To be fair, quite a character. He was capped by the under-17s last summer, and hopefully he will also be a good player and will be someone who will provide for our youth sides and the senior national team in 5 or 10 years' time.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was thinking as well, like, if obviously with when the war kicked off, or they had FIFA like that rule with sort of cancel your contract. I don't think either Kvicha or Davitasvili or I can't remember. I know them two specifically anyway would have possibly never got out of that league because Kazan were after like 20-30 million for Kvicha, weren't they? So,
that's also that was a positive thing on that matter, at least for those players. And because Rubin wanted like 18 million for him, and the talent was there. But if you look at his raw numbers, a guy who on average scored like 4 goals
in Russia as well, not like a big league.
Russia, coming from a smaller nation like Georgia, I was going to gamble 18 million for him, but then the price tag obviously got reduced, and he was sold for 10/11, which is reasonable nowadays because we see players being sold for absurd amounts.
10 times.
Yeah.
Caicedo for fucking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but
he's not super yacht money, is he?
Yeah.
No.
They definitely played a good part in both Davutashvili's and Kvaratskhelia career, which allowed them to go elsewhere for more affordable price for the teams, and it turned out well.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was. I can't remember what commentator it was, but it was Martin Keown. That's who it was, saying, "I can't believe no English team bought Kvaratskhelia for only 8 million." I know. Middlesbrough Football Club. Anyway, not angry about it.
Leeds and Everton wanted him.
Everton, bloody hell.
Everton as well. I know.
Before.
Can you imagine Sean Dyche though in charge of fucking? Oh no.
Yeah, someone like at the time Bielsa was at Leeds, I think, in 2021. Yeah, I think Bielsa was the head coach of Leeds, and so like Leeds will be nice for him to develop. Had Rafinha on the right and Vulture on the left, but that didn't work out because of the price tag. I think they wanted like 17 or 18 million. Leeds were only willing to pay like 11. Same with Ajax. Ajax said like we're only paying 8. Like okay. And none of the teams gambled the price tag, but fortunately for Napoli, it turned out really well when they got a player for super cheap. Could be sold for 10 times as much. this summer at least.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just very glad that Leeds have also fallen apart since then. So, yeah. But yeah, James, I've monopolised Lucas' time again.
No, not at all. I think like pretty much covered everything. This has been a wonderful insight. If anything, kind of envious really. Maybe you'll have to invite me, Theon, and we'll.
Well, me and Luke have already discussed this, mate. Yeah, you're already on.
We'll go to Georgia away.
You're already thinking of the Frankfurt on the old Lufthansa.
Yes, please.
If we make the Euros, it's in Germany. Yeah, the tickets go on sale from the 3rd of October. So
yes, yeah.
Or if Borough get relegated, which is looking like Derby Borough, go on.
Yeah, mate, I've got a Derby kit. I can represent now. So.
I'm going to the Euros for my stag do, and I don't support England, by the way. We won't get into it, Luca, but I support New Zealand football wise. And all my mates are like, "Oh, you're going to watch England? We're going to watch England." I'm like, "No." I can't. Hopefully,
I'll drag us into it. I'll drag us into an Irish bar, James.
Yeah.
If I'm invited, which best be. Anyway.
Hopefully, get tickets for Georgia. I'd love that, or anyone else. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'll just be anxious about my invite to that as well. In the meantime,
don't you worry. Don't you
go on? Don't you worry, you're not coming. Anyway, but what we did. What would it be?
Yeah.
Come on. Give us just for everyone. Just tell them your plans, mate. Tell them your plans.
Yeah. It's still a working process of trying to figure out a few more designs. I think I'm going to nail them down come next Friday. It's also been an issue to get the shirts properly on time every single day. So stocks have been an issue, but now I'm kind of sorted that you'll be probably one of the guys. You're going to be the second guy who'll get a hands on the latest design, because we already managed to sell one prototype to a guy from Germany. And yeah, man, it'll soon, by the end of this month, basically it's the 14th now, so by the end of September we'll be live selling our merchandise.
In perfect time for Vulture Authority's new single to release it as well. So what else was I gonna say to you then? Luca, all your social media channels, obviously at Georgian Footy on Twitter, but the outlet. That's it. Right. So, but yeah, this has been thoroughly enjoyable, Luke.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much for doing it with us.
Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, Madlova in the original Georgian. My one word. I remember Chemijma as well. Madlova, Chemijma. Go on. Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our special then. You can always follow us at Cultures Pod on Twitter. Your Twitters, your Instagrams, your TikToks. Not Facebook, because we're under 50. At
least now.
At least, yeah.
Put on the Cultures Pod Facebook. Who built the pyramids? Was it alien?
What do you call a sandwich where you're from? No, I don't care. No one cares. But what we do care about is football.
Yes.
So please give us a follow, give us a like, give us a share it with your mates.
Give Luca a follow as well. You would be remiss.
Follow Georgian Footy, incredible account. And yeah, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.